Hey everybody, it's Jork. Welcome back. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. Um, I should have noted because just a couple of days ago, I'm making a few videos back to back. Some of you may be commenting, have a hockey game going on in the background, so I'll catch the last period of the game after making this video. One of my favorite topics to talk about, from living overseas and talking to people that are looking to move and looking to retire, and our thoughts on what we're going to do with retirement when we get there, is this idea around slow travel versus a permanent move in retirement. And if you were going to talk to me 5 years ago, we were living in Portugal and now back in the United States. If you were to say, where were you looking to move to retire to? My wife and I probably say at the same time, Italy. For many reasons, we were looking at that would be when we get around to retirement, maybe that's where we would look to retire. But we had also talked about having a place back in the United States, somewhere in the U.S. Could be a small apartment, a condo, something to be able to go back to, but then spend the majority of our time in Italy. And as we finished up our time in Portugal and moved back, it gave us an opportunity, that time there, as well as we were getting ready to move back, to talk to so many people about, if you had to do it over. And where I'm going with that, we were still working. Almost everybody that we were in contact with that were immigrants were retired. The vast majority were. And, I had always asked the question, hey, still move here to Portugal? Would you move someplace else? Or would you, take on this kind of newer idea of this slow travel? Do you look back and go, okay, you've been here a few years. Do you wish that you would have rather stayed in your home country, kept a property, let's say, but then spent 2 or 3 months based upon visa and what you could do in a country, kind of be immersed for 80 to 90 days, and then go back. And then a few months later, go someplace else for 2 or 3 months, and then go back home. And I didn't think much of that idea. I think at the time we were talking to people that were committed to a move someplace and staying there and saying goodbye to the former country. But as we were moving back, and so many people in the year and not quite year and a half we've been back, so many people we talked to that were adamant about staying in Portugal have left or are in the process of moving someplace else. And so I've asked in our conversations again, so you're really committed, but are you going to now slow travel through different countries based upon what you can or can't do? Or are you looking to make another, I'll say, a permanent move, your second permanent move someplace in retirement? And more often than not, more people are saying, if we had to do it over again, we might have thought about just staying in our home country, economizing or buying a smaller property, getting rid of assets, and just having a smaller place to call home in our home country. But then go spend a lot of time abroad in different countries. So as opposed to, let's say, always going to one country and being there, we want to go visit 30 or 40 or 50 before we're the end of our life. And that's interesting to me because more people seem to be talking about that. And in comments that I get, especially with how immigration has been in a number of countries, even the top 10 countries that people move to, Portugal's still a top country that people are looking to move to. The immigration process is ridiculous, and I'm being generous just by saying that, being very diplomatic. There are many countries that have become so popular that their immigration has just collapsed. So that begs the question of, maybe thinking about just staying put where you're at in your home country and then just taking longer trips. And I'm wondering, is that something that you're contemplating? Is that something you would even consider? Because I think it's become more of a trend for people to do. And because immigration in more countries is becoming more problematic, not less problematic, it may be the more practical solution than trying to say we're going to be all in and commit to country X. Because country X may be difficult to get into from an immigration standpoint. And then, well, maybe you got to come up with a country Y and a country Z. And at that point, maybe you just say, screw it, we're going to stay where we're at. We're not going to deal with any immigration stuff. At least it answers the immigration issue, makes it easy because it doesn't become an issue. You just follow whatever your tourist visa says for that particular country and stay up to the point where you have to leave. And we've talked about it, about the retirement and what that will look like when we get there. And I think that as much as, like I said, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought about this, wife wouldn't have either. We're more on board with the idea of this slow travel or being able to spend time, provided we can afford it, to go to a country and be immersed, get past the top highlights and be able to spend some time living like a local, if you will, and learning more about the country, kind of getting past that superficial tourist layer. And in maybe 2 to 3 months of time, I feel like we can really do a deeper dive, as opposed to making the commitment to move. You just go back home, and when you go back home, you start planning about where you're going to go next for the next 2 or 3 months. How does that sound to you? And is that something you're already doing? And the reason I say this is just talk to a handful of people that's what they're doing, and they're going, you've never made a video about this. You've been doing this a long time. Why not make a video about, people are doing this, and it may be what the future is based upon how difficult immigration has become across the board in so many different countries. What do you think about that? Is it something that you would be open to going, maybe you could get on board with it? The thing that goes through my head is the cost involved. And of course, yes, if you're moving to a country and you're there 12 months, a year, and you have to pay for rent or a mortgage and the cost of living. I guess it really doesn't matter whether you're divvying that up into quarters or 2-month segments in different places. But I think sometimes the finances aren't as fixed because you're going to go to different countries with different costs of living. But you can research that, I guess, ahead of time. But it's something I'm warming up to, and I'm getting more interested. So I'm asking more questions to people, YouTubers, that this is what they do. They're in different places, asking them to give us their thoughts on what it's like to be here for a couple of months, then home, then someplace else. And I think that'd be a kind of a cool thing. Again, that all depends on the affordability and if it can financially be able to do that. What do you think? I think it's a great option as opposed to having to make the total move. I get that if you're committed to a country, you're going to do whatever it takes or try to. There just are more people that are getting frustrated with how many countries are handling immigration these days. And doesn't seem like there's a light at the end of that tunnel. So maybe slow travel is the bridge to give you that ability to kind of slowly move around to different places, but still keeping your home base, so to speak. Please let me know in the comments if that's what you do, if you think that's preposterous, if you think it's a good idea. Would love to hear from you and love to get some comments from those of you that watch the videos. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch these videos, and enjoy your travels.